He's one of America's most influential pollsters. He played a key role in determining the words used in the political arena for decades. Frank Luntz is here for an in-depth one-on-one conversation about the 2020 election cycle, his perspective on the impact of Trump's messaging, and whether socialism may be a make-or-break label for Democrats. Thanks for coming, Frank.
I would never say no to you.
All right, it's obvious that whatever the opponents are, they're going to take advantage of the word socialist, right? Why is that a bad word, since half this country is socialist?
Well, it didn't used to be that way. And in fact, more young people identify themselves as socialist than capitalist. We found that about 5-6 years ago. The word socialism and the idea of socialism has becoming more and more popular over the last 10 years under the Obama administration, and now with Bernie Sanders promoting it directly. But still, if you're over age 50, it scares you. It reminds you of Eastern Europe, it reminds you of Venezuela, and it reminds you of government control, which nobody wants. The problem, or the challenge for those on the right, is that capitalism is a dirty word. When they hear the word capitalism, they think Wall Street, profits, things that aren't good for hardworking men and women. And so it's not that socialism is becoming more popular, it's that capitalism is becoming less popular.
Because Lyndon Johnson said that we're going to have to be half socialist, half capitalism. Or let's say Social Security is socialism.
Well, the first thing is that no one knows who Lyndon Johnson is anymore. Second is that we can't define these terms. Ask an 18-year-old what socialism is, and they really don't know other than free stuff. And if they're going to get free health care, free job training, free education, and that's socialism, then that they like.
Yeah, and they see it in other countries.
They see it in other countries, and they don't think of Venezuela. They don't think of North Korea. They don't think of China. When they think socialism, they think Europe. They think Norway, Sweden, Denmark.
Yeah, I was in Norway. It's amazing how it works there.
But it's a smaller country, and it doesn't have the diversity that we have, doesn't have the land mass that we have, doesn't have the population explosion or the immigration that we have. I think what I've learned over the last 10 years is that each country is different. Each election is different, and what works for one country and one election doesn't work for others.
All right, how do you explain Bernie Sanders' success thus far?
It's amazing. The oldest candidate is loved by the youngest voters. And in fact, in Iowa, New Hampshire, and now Nevada, he has dominated the 18 to 29-year-old vote. It's like they think he's their grandfather. But they do seek free stuff. They do not necessarily understand what it is to pay for something. That health care isn't free. Somebody has to pay for it. That education isn't free, that someone is paying for it. And they really don't like millionaires and billionaires. So they respond to Bernie's message, and he's authentic. You know that he says what he means and means what he says. And for the youngest voters, that's important to them.
Yeah, he's also a hell of a campaigner.
The guy's got more. It's interesting. The two candidates with the most energy are Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. And they're also the oldest candidates. Sanders goes to more events. He's more excited. He's energetic. He pumps up the crowd. And I watch some of these other candidates. They're simply quieter, and they're not as engaged. Bernie Sanders reads his own material. He rarely, if ever, uses a teleprompter. The guy is a great communicator. I like to say that it takes Bernie Sanders an hour and a half to watch 60 Minutes, or the other one that I use, Bernie Sanders is so old, the only time he doesn't have to pee is when he's peeing. That said, I talked to him during the campaign. He's really committed. He's genuine. He's authentic. I may disagree with everything he says, but the American people are desperately looking for someone who looks you straight in the eye, says what they mean, and means what they say.
How come no one asks him, how's he going to get all this stuff through a Congress that's the Senate is most, how's he going to get it passed? You can want it, but how are you going to get it passed?
That's what the Republicans will ask him, but he's counting on Democrats winning control of the Senate. He's hoping that Chuck Schumer becomes the majority leader, and if Schumer does, they could change the Senate rules from 60 votes, filibuster, back down to 51. And if they do that, and Democrats have the majority, stranger things have happened.
Could they take the Senate?
Yes, they could.
They could?
It's gonna. Right now it's 50-50. I don't want to name the seats. No, I do want to name the seats. Arizona is very close. Colorado is very close. Maine is very close, and that takes you down from 53 to 50. If the Democrats were to win the Senate, that's the make or break. Now, Republicans can pick up Alabama, and there are a couple other seats, but right now you cannot determine who's going to control the U.S. Senate.
When this all started, Joe Biden was a prohibitive favorite, former vice president, excellent guy, good guy. Nobody dislikes Joe Biden. What's happened?
Well, he likes to call himself a constitutional specialist. It's because he was there in the room when they wrote the document. Biden has not had the passion. He's not as ideological as Sanders or Warren. He's not as much of a fresh face as Mayor Pete. And I don't think his debate performances have been effective. I think he's been too quiet. He's too willing to follow the rules. He doesn't show that passion that he had 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, boy, did he.
And the debates really do matter. They are watched by millions and millions of people.
What is Elizabeth Warren's strength?
She is a brilliant debater. She's very smart to begin with. She's the best debater, and there are a significant percentage of women voters who really want to vote for a female candidate. They felt robbed when Hillary Clinton did not win in 2016, and they see either Warren or Klobuchar carrying their mantle in 2020.
Assuming he doesn't get the nomination, what's the future of Pete Buttigieg?
I think he ends up in the cabinet. He has an amazing future. In terms of pure debating, he's the best debater by far. No matter what question you ask him, he's got a brilliant... Mike Bloomberg could learn a lot from Mayor Pete. Mike Bloomberg should ask Mayor Pete to debate prep him because he's got an answer for everything. And he's calm, and he's collected. And if he were to get the nomination, which I don't think he will, but if he were, he would drive Trump nuts.
Who will be the challenger to Trump?
I think Sanders has a tremendous advantage. I really do. I have my jokes. I hope he actually is the candidate. I wanted to be Secretary of Agriculture under the Sanders administration so that I could plant those magic trees where all that free was from. I'm hoping I can say that on your air.
Yeah.
I met him on the trail, and I was surprised and impressed with his humanity. That those on the right want to dismiss him as just being an angry old man. You don't get the votes of millions of young people if you are just an angry old man. You don't change the mindset of Americans on issues such as healthcare if you're just an angry old man. There's something there, and I've been to a half dozen of his rallies, and I say to every viewer, you have to go. You have to see it, because if you go, you realize that these people are passionate, they're dedicated, their votes will not change. There is a Trump-like feeling among Sanders voters.
Could Trump avoid a debate?
Could he avoid a debate? No.
There's no law that they have to debate.
No, and I don't think he would want to with Bernie Sanders. I think he'll challenge him directly, and I think it'll be the most watched debates in modern times. I actually think this will be the highest turnout in modern times, because everyone who loves Trump will vote for him. Everyone who hates him will vote against him. Everyone's going to participate. Even Chicago voters, dead people, will be voting 3 or 4 times.
That impeachment hurts the Democrats.
Yes,
I know Pelosi thinks that.
But they chose to do it, and they chose to do it in their way. The public feels that there is something there. In our polling, they question what was done and why it was done. But they don't think the Democrats acted in good faith. One of the things I've learned since I first did your show decades ago is that intent matters. Are you doing it for the American people, or are you doing it for political gain? And the public believes the Democrats did it for political gain, and they resent that. Donald Trump is stronger today. His numbers are higher today than they were before impeachment. And one more thing. The single greatest indication of re-election is a simple question. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?
Reagan to Carter.
Exactly. And by the way, you don't know this, but I was on your show, your radio show, your Coast to Coast show, I was one of your callers after that debate in 1980. I've wanted to tell you this forever.
Where were you, in college?
I was in college. I was a freshman at the University of Pennsylvania. I called you from my dorm, 440 Rodney. I got on your show. Everyone on the floor is going nuts because I'm on your national show. And now it's 40 years later, and I get a chance to do this with you now. So thank you for taking my comments. I really appreciate it.
That Reagan line was one of the best.
One of the best ever. And it's the same line that Donald Trump should be asking right now. But the challenge for Trump is that in some ways, he's his own worst enemy. That he can be brilliant, and the public supports his policies, and they all think the economy is better off. But there's a language that they don't like, tweeting that they don't like, that they like what he's done, but they have issues with how he does it. And I wonder if he has enough self-control to promote the positive in him and reduce the negative.
You wouldn't bet on it, though.
You can't call this election with everybody voting. And the most important state, I want to say things that are helpful here. So the state I want you to watch, and the state that you should do a show from if you can, is Michigan.
Because?
Not Detroit, Grand Rapids. Because Michigan has the union vote. Michigan has an urban vote. Michigan has a rural farm vote. Grand Rapids is an old-fashioned city on its way up.
Gerald Ford.
And it has been a bellwether for decades. The candidate that wins Michigan wins America.